I'm Molly Bloom. Do you know about me? This is a true story.
You ran games in LA for roughly 8 years?
Yeah.
And then you ran games in New York for roughly 2.
I haven't run a game in over 2 years, not to spoil the ending. But that's when the government raided my game and took all of my money, assuming all of it was made illegally, which it wasn't. In this room, you couldn't buy your win.
I'm all in.
You couldn't buy me, and you couldn't buy a seat at the table.
Movie stars, athletes, billionaires, that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Slate your name and I'll
Those Adidas.
That's cool.
Jamaal Finkley, Black Tree TV.
Do you know, Jamaal, like, there's probably a few tapes where we both look at the sneaks and there's a little bit of sneaker talk at the top of those tapes.
Really?
All the time, yeah.
'Cause, shoe game talk.
Okay.
I love this movie. And this gonna sound crazy, but it kind of reminds me of Freaknik. It's like you might not know about Freaknik, but it's this thing that
Freaknik?
yeah.
I don't know. I didn't know Big Driss. I didn't know Freaknik.
Break this down for me.
Freaknik was around in the 90s, and nobody had cameras, and people could do and say things that they probably wouldn't do if people had cameras. And this Molly's World game seemed like it happened kind of before all these leaks and social media. And my first question: do you think this world still exists? Without Molly being involved, obviously. But do you think like
The poker world?
Yeah, well, the secret world, poker world that
Absolutely. I actually went to a game in New York before I started shooting with all the players that Molly used to play with.
Wow.
Yeah, I think in all this kind of, absolutely it exists.
Wow. Me and Idris had to talk, discuss books that he loved in one of his last projects. He talked about Gladwell and self-help books, and in this movie, The Crucible and Molly's World books plays a big part. I want to know what's on your reading list, or what was some of the books that you kind of like dived into to escape?
To escape.
Or to inspire.
Yeah, I mean the last book I read that I loved, and I'm so far behind on this. I was late to the conversation. Is 1,000 Splendid Suns, which is the most. I read that this summer and I wept.
Really?
Yeah, it's one of those where every time you're going to read, you're like, it's so good. You're trying to talk to someone and explain why, but you want them to read it.
Yeah.
That one I love. And then I also loved, there's a book that I read years ago. It was Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton's Love Letters, which I loved that book.
Wow. It seems from the notes that Aaron Sorkin's character is really Aaron was speaking through the attorney, his relationship with Molly. How did you see Aaron as a director in this project, as opposed to the great writer that we all know him as, and how did you work with him on that character, seeing it seemed to be personal to him?
Working with him was great. He was very relaxed. I was saying earlier that there is just a slight over-awareness for me as an actor. I'm doing an Aaron Sorkin movie, and he's directing it. So, you kind of go in there sort of a little slightly preconditioned sort of, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. And, he expelled all of that. He got me to relax, trust the words, which I did, of course, but, just trust the process of the words, and then actually bring a bit of yourself to it. Trust Jessica, trust you, and just go at it. And that was a real sort of, from the day one, first of all, when I first met Aaron, I was like, are you sure, bro, me? Like, I had that, and he was like, are you kidding me? And we were mutual fans of each other's work, which was such a relief and kind of like a mama, I made it moment, because he's so incredible. But then to realize that his work ethic and his process was as diverse and interesting and courageous as ours as actors, that was a real blessing. We enjoyed it.
Speaking of his directorial debut, you've directed some things before, but your feature film debut for Yardie is coming out. And I wonder, you could go to the theater right now and see Idris Elba in 4 movies. Right now.
And I think, it's true.
How do you work the process of living with this new project as a director and doing all these other great projects that you've done as an actor this year?
Dude, it's the stuff, as is the world. It is the stuff of great foundation changing. My life has definitely changed. I was saying that as a director now, of making my first feature, it's completely reconditioned how I look at myself as an actor. It's really conditioned how I manage my time. One of the struggles I had as a director was actually being able to come here and promote another movie while I'm in the edit of my movie. So that was something that's been changed. But listen, dude, it's high class problems. I'm so thankful for what I have achieved and doing. Yeah.
It's a great movie.
Thank
I hope
you.
to see it during the award season. Thank you, guys.
Good to
very
see you
much.
again, boss.
All right.
Take care.